My courtesy to our secondary school principal too, Ma'am Francisca R. Padlan, our assistant school principal too, Ma'am Felony Kaasi, assistant to the principal for junior high school, and master teacher 3, Ma'am Emery Aquino, our head teacher 3, Ma'am Melanie Labiao, master teachers in attendance, and to my fellow teachers who are present today, a pleasant morning, everyone. Before I begin my discussion, allow me to ask this question. So, do these questions sound familiar? Open-minded ka ba? Gusto ka mo invest? Unsay mong gusto? Times 3, times 2, or times 6? So it seems like yesterday, no, that most of us were captivated with these questions. Kanang halos bukang bibig sa tanan kay investments, right? But those were the days. So past is past, diba? But what if I tell you that you can invest in something that will only require your best effort and commitment, and then you will earn money from it? Would you invest? Are you willing or interested to invest? Commitment lang ang kailangan, then makakwarta na ka. So, kung interesado ka, then listen and internalize everything that I'm going to share this morning. My task for this morning is to share on the essentials of basic education research agenda. So I will be giving tips or advices on how to get that research funding. So since yesterday, Ma'am LG discussed about the requirements for promotion, and one of the requirements that has the large portion of the points came from conducting research. So kung gusto ta ma-promote in the future, then let's do research. Our objectives for this session are the following. So we have first, to orient the participants on the research management guidelines. Second, update participants on the improved grants processes of the Basic Education Research Fund. Then third is to discuss action research proposal template. And fourth is to synthesize the criteria of a good action research. So first, let's have an overview on research management guidelines. So research management guidelines is a set of guidelines that provide guidance in managing research initiatives in the national, regional, schools, division, and school levels. It introduces support mechanism and reinforces the link of research to education processes through research dissemination, utilization, and advocacy. The new policy signed and made effective on March 20, 2017 also contains mechanisms for accessing and utilizing available resources for research, as well as for related initiatives with external stakeholders. This is stipulated in Department Order 16 series of 2017, which is also known as the Research Management Guidelines. The Governance of Basic Education Act of 2001, or also known as the Republic Act 9155, mandates that the Department of Education enact policies and mechanisms through which the delivery of quality basic education may be continuously improved. So, Chapter 1, Section 7 includes among the responsibilities of DepEd across all governance levels the undertaking of educational research and studies that will serve as one of the bases for necessary reforms and policy development. To promote an environment of evidence-based decision-making, DepEd has made strides in instituting research and its utilization in policy and program development. So, DepEd Order Number 13, Series of 2015, established a systematic policy development process in the department promoting evidence-based policy formulation supported by research studies. To provide financial support to the conduct of research in the field, DepEd Order 43 Series of 2015 and DepEd Order number 4 Series of 2016 set guidelines on the use of the Basic Education Research Fund or your BERF. So to put focus on these research initiatives, Department Order DepEd Order number 39, series of 2016, promulgated the Basic Education Research Agenda, which makes known the research priorities of the department across four themes and three cross-cutting themes, which shall be discussed later in this presentation. Okay, for the rationale, um, learning is the core of the Department of Education's mandate. However, DepEd is not only a learner-centered government institution. It is also an organization that constantly incorporates the learning process in implementing education policies and programs consistent with its vision. So we all know about our vision, right? The department sustains its progressive orientation by ensuring that its actions are informed by sound and relevant evidence based or evidence from research. Evaluation research can draw lessons from past and existing education programs and identify ways to improve them. Policy studies can define problems and generate possible solutions, and social experiments can compare the effects of school interventions and weed out ineffective from promising ones. While there are a myriad of topics to probe in the education sector, the department's research thrusts are strategically geared towards supporting its mission. So we are very familiar with our mission, right? Okay, the research agenda identifies research topics that will fill in critical knowledge gaps and respond to pressing concerns in Philippines basic education. So, consistent with the department's vision, mission, and target outcomes, and in line with local and international developments in the sector, by articulating specific study areas, um, this research agenda seeks to, number one, build on gains from existing research. So you can make an action research out from the current or existing research. Second, generate new knowledge on less explored but priority fields of basic education. So less explored, example, the new pedagogies or strategies that we're currently using now, especially in this time of pandemic. Then third is systematically focus depth its attention on relevant education issues. So what are now the important educations that we are currently facing? Then number four is maximize available resources for research within and outside the department. Okay, for the scope, the Basic Education Research Agenda will guide all depth ed researchers from schools, divisions, regions, and central office. In the same way, the agenda will also be shared for consideration of external partners such as research institutions. So we can tap DOST or the DOST FNRI or the Food and Nutrition Research Institute. Then we also have other government agencies such as our LGUs. Then higher education institutions. So we can partner with USEP or the NSC for instance. Then teacher education institutions and non-government organizations among others. However, so this research agenda will not only limit research inquiries, so rather it will encourage researchers to go beyond, especially for pressing and emerging education issues not covered by the agenda. Given the influence of research on education decisions and actions, quality research is expected. So we have the three guiding principles. We have the excellence, integrity, and openness. So excellence demands that the inquiry is relevant and researchable. So methods applied are appropriate and findings are logical, coherent, and supported by data. Although the research design may vary depending on the nature of the study, so researchers must apply rigorous and empirical methods grounded on scientific inquiry. Then integrity. So the highest ethical standards shall be applied to basic education research. Whether or not human subjects are involved, researchers must ensure that the study will not cause people harm. Research participants should have informed consent, must be cognizant about the general purpose of the study, and should not be exposed to unusual risk. Consistent with the principle of excellence, integrity also requires honesty and accuracy in the collection, analysis, and reporting of data. So, always be honest or truthful, especially in collecting your data, since our research will become a basis for policies in the future. So we must be really careful in collecting our data. So next is for the openness. So DepEd acknowledges the importance of collaboration in its work, including research. So openness emphasizes the need to engage more partners in basic education research and to employ multidisciplinary perspectives. The same likewise ensures truthful and timely dissemination of research results and data sets with the bounds of confidentiality to DepEd and other stakeholders for appreciation and application as well as peer evaluation. Based on a review of the agency's policies and programs, survey of literature, and nationwide consultations with representatives of DepEd Central and field offices, four research themes or basic education topics were identified. So we have the teaching and learning, child protection, human resource development, and governance. It is expected that the findings generated from each theme will fuel evidence-based actions that strategically support the attainment of the department's vision and mission, as well as target outcomes of ensuring first, we have access to complete basic education. Second, quality education. And third, effective, transparent, and engaging governance of basic education. So while the themes generally support DepEd's overall mandate, each theme has unique contributions to the department's target, outcomes, and mission. So for instance, child protection directly enhances the access outcome, while teaching and learning squarely impacts on the quality of education. So in the same manner, the identified themes dovetail with the department's mission, particularly its four key stakeholders. So you have the teaching and learning process, or the teaching and learning response to students and teachers' needs. The child protection focuses on the students. Human resource development addresses concerns of teaching and non-teaching staff, while governance centers on administration and stakeholder engagement. As the national institution mandated to provide quality basic education to all Filipinos, DepEd seeks to ensure that learning outcomes are achieved by maximizing the competencies of teachers and potentials of all types of learners. This theme thus covers the actors, activities, and fundamental aspects of teaching and learning in various contexts. So specifically, the research agenda looks into the strategies, best practices, and facilitating and hindering factors relative to five sub-themes. So you have the first, instruction; second, curriculum; third, learners; then you have fourth, assessment; and then lastly, you have the learning outcomes. So, instruction incorporates strategies to enhance the teaching learning process. Particular attention is given to teaching various subjects in light of reforms under the K-12 program and the growing importance of honing well-rounded learners able to compete in the current as well as future economies. So key topics under the instruction includes but are not limited to the following. So we have here what factors affect the teacher's delivery of the curriculum. So you have the class size. So for example, research topic for this, you have the is the actual size in our school setting effective in the teaching learning process? The next is contact time. So possible research question or research problem. So does contact time relate with students' learning process? Then we also have here the materials and resources. For example, you are teaching science experiment or and yet the school lacks the needed materials or equipment for that experiment to be conducted. So the following are the other key topics. So you have the ICT, the language, the continuing professional development and support, up to teacher's profile. So example for teacher's profile. So teachers who are teaching non-major subjects. So just like me. So when I started here in Tuason, I was assigned to teach Filipino subjects. So this kind of situation can be a basis for research proposal. So does teacher's specialization affect his or her instructional delivery if he or she is handling non-major subjects? So pwede kaayo ang mga ingon ani na mga topics. So another is we have the teaching and learning strategies can teachers apply to ensure inclusive and learner-centered education. So we have here um, emerging good practices like the current situation we are in now. So what are the best practices that you are currently implementing and you think it is effective in this time of pandemic? For you to prove that it is really effective, then conduct research. So you can have pre or post test, or you can interview your students or have focus group discussions. Then you are already halfway to your action research. So ingon ana lang jud siya kadali. Then we also have ICT in education. Another topic that is applicable in our current situation is to determine which is effective in students' learning. Is it modular learning or online learning, or we can also have between printed or digital learning. So another topics, you have the DRR or the CCA or the climate change adaptation, the child-centered approach, and then you have the collaborative learning or classroom management in example, positive discipline. So on the other hand, we have the curriculum will focus on the contribution of the new K to 12 program on improving learning outcomes with the integration of skills and competencies such as DRR and CCA in the delivery of the new curriculum. Looking at effectiveness is crucial. So key topics under curriculum include but are not limited to the following. So, general research question. So, how is the curriculum able to contribute in achieving learning outcomes? So, example in contextualization. If you have any strategy that is unique and you think that it is effective in improving the learning of students, then you can have it as your action research. Example, if you have developed an activity template or activity sheets, you can use them as your research instruments in conducting your research. So actually, the modules that we are currently writing, we can also use it in our action research. So, in general, what we are usually doing are all researchable topics. So all we have to do is to organize our thoughts so we can organize the data that we need. Okay, so other topics, you have the spiral progression, then you have the higher order thinking skills, integration, and the likes. Okay, so or another sub-theme. So learners. So this agenda will study the developmental, social, and behavioral effects of the teaching learning process on learners who are the primary clients of basic education. Key topics under learners include but are not limited to the following. So you have here what factors affect the learning behaviors of learners. um, Topics here, you can have the child development, teaching strategies, multiple intelligences. So another question, what contributes to the values formation of learners? How about your school influence, community, culture, extra and co-curricular activities? Another is what makes a well-rounded, happy, and smart learner? So same topics as mentioned earlier. DepEd has defined the official K-12 assessment framework, which lays out current um, policies and shows the current thinking on the matter. As a key component of the teaching learning process, assessment requires further study to refine the details of the framework. Key topics under assessment include but are not limited to the following. So we have here what factors affect the implementation of classroom assessment. So we have here classroom assessment, emerging good practices, teachers' expertise, availability of assessment tools and resources. So especially in this time of pandemic, we have new assessment that we are using, so you can have that as your action research. Another is how is assessment conducted and utilized in the Philippine education system. So we have the levels from classrooms up to international assessments, or also have the system assessments. Another general research question: how effective is recognition of prior learning in determining students to special programs? So you can have a research topic on basic literacy program. You have the assessment and evaluation, PEPT, and special programs. Next sub-theme, which is the last one, is learning outcomes. So the research agenda further examines learning outcomes by understanding what drives achievement and by assessing and comparing the progress of learners across subjects, grade levels, and geographical regions. Key topics under learning outcomes but are not limited to or but are not limited to the following. Okay, so we have here the general research questions. What factors affected achievement of learning? So possible topics, you have the teacher's profile, learning environment, learning resources, language, assessment, governance. Then another research question: how does achievement of expected learning outcomes vary in terms of practices per region, division, and or school? So you have the regional, division, and school variation, school typology, role of leaders, geographic, political, and economic factors, and you have the partnerships. Okay, next, main theme or research theme of the basic education research agenda is the child protection. So DepEd's learner-centered approach recognizes that a child's condition can significantly affect the achievement of learning outcomes, while the department may not have the direct mandate and resources to address many of the social, economic, and personal issues of learners. It is committed to ensuring their well-being, particularly in situations where harm can occur in school or disrupt their studies. So the department's commitment warrants a separate section on child protection, particularly to address reported incidents of bullying, teenage pregnancy, addictive behaviors, and child labors. So while laws and policies are in place to address these, there is a need for in-depth studies on their prevalence and effects. There is also a need to assess the effectiveness of previous interventions and the potential of new approaches to better protect learners in schools. Main topics under child protection include but are not limited to the following. So we have here general research question. How can DepEd best address the following child protection concerns? We have the bullying, teenage pregnancy. We also have child abuse, addiction, media consumption. So as you notice, if you had experienced or observed the our research congress in our school for the past 3 years, so most of the researches of our students are under this the child protection. So most of their topics were on addiction, so such as Facebook addiction, Mobile Legend addiction, and also some also had the drug addiction. And then also there were students who explored on child labors as well. Okay. So, as DepEd is the nation's largest bureaucracy, it is imperative that various strategies are developed to nurture the vast human capital involved in delivering basic education. So, research questions will delve into three sub-themes. We have teaching and non-teaching qualifications and hiring. Second, career development. Then you have the employee welfare. So the topics extend to teacher education institutions, particularly on ways to upgrade pre-service preparation and DepEd's role in providing continuous quality training, similarly developing the support structure of DepEd through its non-teaching personnel is an important area of inquiry. Key topics under teaching and non-teaching qualifications and hiring include but are not limited to the following. So we have here general research questions. How effective is the professional development framework in the delivery of the K to 12 curriculum? So we have here topics, specialization, quality of years of experience, language proficiency, academic skills, psychosocial skills, and ICT integration in teaching. So, this research question intends to examine the responsiveness of the department's existing professional development framework. Another is what qualifications and competencies are required for teaching in an inclusive learning environment. So we have the topics skills for inclusive education, DRR and CCA, teaching beginning reading, qualification standards, psychosocial skills, interpersonal skills. Then, how can pre-service teacher education be improved to develop teachers who can effectively deliver the K-12 curriculum? So, topics, teacher education institutions, core courses, relevant non-core courses, new courses, and then the following preparation. Then, what qualifications and competencies are required of non-teaching staff to support the effective delivery of the K-12 curriculum? So these are the topics, possible topics for that research question. Another is issues and challenges in hiring public school teachers and how can these be addressed? So you have here localization law, the ranking system, natural vacancies. Then we have the qualification standards, allocation of teachers, verification of eligibility of documents. So another sub-theme for human resource development. So we have here the career development. So there is likewise a keen interest on the career development of both teaching and non-teaching personnel in order to surface and address their capacity building needs and to examine various dimensions and determinants of their professional growth. So, specific questions attempt to validate reported challenges to personal movement and progression. So, key topics under career development include but are not limited to the following. So, you have here how can selection, retention, assessment, development, promotion, and recognition be enhanced to support DepEd employees in different career stages? So, you have here career path progression, personal considerations, our RPMS. So actually, our RPMS is a product of research, scholarship grants, and succession planning. We also have here capacity building activities. So um, the current inset that we have, it can be used as a research topic also, the LAC sessions. So you can conduct research on this, the trainings and seminars that we are conducting in our school. So you can have that. Another is capacity building activities. So you have the overall training program, selection process, monitoring and evaluation, and other development options. So another sub-theme of human resource development is your employee welfare. So this is the last sub-theme. So, understanding career development also includes studying the nature and effectiveness of existing employee welfare provisions. So, the department seeks to explore monetary and non-monetary strategies as well as non-traditional mechanisms to keep its personnel, especially especially teachers, motivated to perform well. So key topics under employee welfare include but are not limited to the following. So we have here mechanisms that are most appropriate to promote the welfare of all DepEd employees. So you have the professionalization, salary. So does the salary increase improve the teaching performance of teachers? How about benefits, incentives? You have the protections and safeguard, grievance mechanism, teaching load, and ancillary services. So you can have you can explore research here. Okay, next is we have monetization program, gender and development. Then what motivates teaching and not teaching personnel to sustain commitment and passion to high quality teaching, learning and work performance? You have the intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So for instance, if you are in the admin, so if you observe na your teachers are not interested in their work na. So you can have research on that, or on the positive note, um, if your teachers are performing well, then you can also um, have an action research on that. Okay, so we are now on the last theme for our research agenda. So we have the governance. Managing the largest bureaucracy towards education in the nation's future requires efficient and effective operations. So the governance theme of the research agenda, which covers planning, next is finance, then program management, transparency and accountability, and evaluation, underscores DepEd's commitment to ensure that its structure, systems, and processes contribute to the achievement of basic education outcomes. So the department has already provided internal guidance in DepEd Order number 13, series of 2015, for the development of effective and efficient policies. So with this in place, DepEd's next concern is to ensure that these policies are implemented and translated into appropriate programs. Because it governs very large sector with complex interrelationships, the department often encounters challenges in its planning process. So this section deals with standards and policies that ensure the achievement of the department's goals. So key topics under planning include but are not limited to the following. So you have here, how can DepEd determine effective and efficient standards for critical education resources for schools, community learning centers, and other delivery units? So topics, you can have the process tools or the critical resources. So under critical resources are your education facilities, your WASH, the school sites, health and nutrition, and operating budget. The next, how can DepEd improve its planning process across levels? So we have the strategic planning, operations planning, okay, and then Next subtheme is your finance. So financial management is a critical component in the governance of basic education. Relevant research areas include meeting government budget, accounting and auditing requirements without compromising efficiency. So this highlights the need to closely examine the effects of financial management, not just on program managers, but also on the intended beneficiaries. Key topics under finance include but are not limited to the following. So for the accounting or finance people, so you can have these research topics. So how can DepEd improve its process in the sourcing, acquisition, disbursement, recording, and reporting of programs and project funds, consistent with applicable laws, policies, rules, and regulations. Then we also have how does financial performance affect key stakeholders in DepEd. Next subtheme is program management. So program management focuses on how DepEd can best develop, implement, monitor, and evaluate programs, projects, and activities while evaluation is discussed separately. So this section focuses on the core implementation phases of program management. After the core mandate of teaching, program management is essentially the next most important function of DepEd. So key topic under program management include but are not limited to the following. So we have here how effective is DepEd's overall program management system. Di ba we are conducting our monitoring and evaluation. So it can be an interesting topic for research. Then also you can have how can we maximize external partnerships locally and abroad to facilitate the delivery of basic education. Our adapt a school program. So pwede rin po yun. Then another sub-theme is transparency and accountability. So the governance theme encompasses transparency and accountability in various levels of DepEd's operations. So at the central and field offices, the department aims to consider ways to incorporate accountability in the budget process for the achievement of targets and outcomes. So, studies can delve into how mechanisms such as transparency board and grievance procedures promote transparency and accountability in schools. So, key topics under transparency and accountability include but are not limited to the following. So, I have here what factors affect transparency and accountability in DepEd. So, you have the procurement law, the implementing units, so the process audit. Another is how effective are internal business processes in allowing the public to monitor and document the performance of DepEd. Then we can also have the how can schools effectively respond to grievance from teachers, learners, parents, and the community. Okay, and then next subtheme is the evaluation. So this is the last subtheme of governance. So a separate section is dedicated to evaluation, which by itself offers a multitude of topics in this document. Monitoring is treated as part of the management as it provides timely information for periodic decisions that need to be made while implementing various programs, policies, and activities. So, a evaluation, on the other hand, aims to determine if the undertaking produced its intended result in the best way possible so that decisions can be made to continue, discontinue, or revise the said undertaking at the appropriate stages of the cycle. Key topics under evaluation include but are not limited to the following. So we have here how effective have DepEd policies, programs, and projects been in meeting their stated objectives. So you have the decentralization, Then you have the human resource training. So what are the unintended consequences? So you also have here the Adapt to School program, Library Hub, your MTB, MLE, ADMs, school-based initiatives. Another is how can DepEd maximize the benefits gained from the evaluation outputs and expertise from within and outside the department. Okay, research utilization. So if you conducted research on the monitoring and evaluation of the schools, then you can utilize the results of that research. Okay, capability building, and then you have the incentives. How can DepEd improve its evaluation? So evaluation standards, professionalizing evaluation discipline, and external accreditation of schools and other units. As mentioned, cross-cutting and emerging education, social concerns will be considered in developing research questions under all of the four themes. So to inform policies and programs on these concerns also listed below are research questions specific to each cross-cutting theme. So these are the cross-cutting theme. You have the disaster risk reduction and management, or your DRRM. The next is the gender and development. So this was discussed by Ma'am Juliet yesterday. Then you also have the inclusive education. So these are the following, the possible research questions and topics under DRRM. So you have general questions for prevention and mitigation. Actually, DRRM has the most number of topics. So you have also here for preparedness. So these are the following research topics. Then for the response, so you have the types of response, the monitoring, then the response protocols. Then we also have the rehabilitation and recovery. So the implementation strategies, assessment mechanisms, psychosocial support for teachers and learners if there are disasters that occur. Then we have the gender and development. So research questions under gender and development may delve into gender mainstreaming in and gender responsiveness of DepEd structures, policies, programs, and projects. So you can have research on the Hagadaga tool as discussed by Ma'am Juliet last or yesterday. Then, so we also have here, lastly, we have the inclusive education. So these are the suggested topics. So inclusive education programs, teaching strategies, assessment, internal and external stakeholders. All right. So all of us now are packed with so many research topics. Syaro sa kadaghan ato na mga topics, no? I know na ana jud mo'y hunaan na research topic. All right, so let's move to our next next topic. So we have here the action research proposal. So format. Now, for you to get started with your action research proposal, let me share to you its format. So, unsa atong ipangbutang sa action research proposal. So, okay, we have here action research proposal format. It is composed of 7 parts. So, the first part is introduction and rationale. Second is literature review. Third part is research questions. Fourth part is scope and the limitation of the study. So I know you are familiar with this part since I already introduced this last year in our during our inset also. Then next part is we have the methodology. So under methodology, you have the data collection, your research participants or respondents, your data analysis, and the likes. Then next is the timetable or Gantt chart. Then you have lastly the cost estimate. So these are the only parts of your action research proposal. So dili jud siya like the thesis that we had in our college or in our master's degree or PA or in the dissertation. So your action research proposal, pwede ra kayo siya like up to 10 pages. So 10 to 15 maximum pages lang. So ingana lang jud siya ka gamay. Okay, so next is we are done with the format. Now we will discuss on the criteria. So these criteria will be the basis whether your action research proposal will be funded or not. So this will help you to become a birth grantee. So actually, kining criteria, wala ko kabaluan ni. Katupag submit namo og action research proposal, I was not familiar with these criteria, so submit lang sa submit, no? So, for us to be able to ensure ourselves na we can have that funding, then let us adhere to these criteria. So, the main criteria are the following. So, rationale of the research questions, use of related literature and proper citation, research methods, work plan and time table, and then cost estimates. Okay, we will discuss each one by one. So the first main criteria is rationale. So for the rationale, it is 10 points. So how to get these 10 points? So your rationale must have the nature, extent, and salience of the research topic are comprehensively discussed. So you must give the important details of your research. So you must be clear on that. Different aspects of the research setting are elaborated, showing in-depth and critical analysis of the situation. So you have to clearly state the actual setting of your research problem. So policy implications, benefits, and limitations of the study are stated. So for example, in my in my research proposal, I stated there that only 2 out of 50 teachers are involved in research. So you must have data to support your claim of your identified research problem. So be specific, be detailed in your rationale. So if your rationale is comprehensively discussed, then you can be assured of your 10 points. Okay, next main criteria is your research question. So this is equal to 20 points. So to get the 20 points, the research questions logically proceed from the context of the study. They are formulated to clearly show the extent and different angles of inquiry. So example, different variables of interest. So you must be able to state the different variables. So if you have the quantitative research and then you are using the correlational study, then you must also state both independent and dependent variables. Relationships to be probed. So from your research question, dapat nakastate din na these relationships that you are going to determine. So example for that is there a significant relationship between this independent variable and this dependent variable? Geographical and temporal scope. So who will be your target respondents or participants? So where are they located? So it must also be stated in your research questions. And then in your research questions, it must be aligned to your methodology. Okay? So if you choose to have quantitative research, then your research questions must be of the quantitative type of questions. So if you are in the qualitative research, then your research questions must also be in the qualitative type of research or questions. Next criteria is use of our related literature and proper citation. So this is equivalent to 10 points. So viewpoints and issues underlying the present research are discussed and synthesized. So they are critically evaluated to identify inconsistencies or gaps in current knowledge or educational policy that the study intends to address. So constructs are defined and presented in a conceptual framework. So citation of literature sources is consistent. So you must establish the research gap um, that you identified based on the literature that you have gathered. So for the citation, we are using the APA citation. So it must be consistent all throughout. So from the rationale up to the methodology. Next main criteria is research method. So this is ang pinakadako na points sa um, pag-evaluate sa research proposal, which is 40 points. So it is composed of the following. So you have the participants and or other sources of data and information, 10 points. Data gathering methods and research instruments, 20 points. Then data analysis plan, 10 points. So for your participants and or other sources of data and information, so details are provided about the target and or other sources of data and information. So clear rationale for their inclusion in the study is given. So you must justify your research respondents or research participants. So you must have inclusive criteria. You must state example, kung ang imuhang participants are the teachers. So, who are these teachers? So, dapat lang ba mga math teachers lang ba? Or it is included in your criteria na dapat they have master's degree or the likes. So depende sa criteria that the criteria that are appropriate for your research study. So sources of data and information must also be stated. So example, what will be the source of your data? From survey ba siya? So kung survey, how will you conduct the survey? Via paper and pencil lang ba or via online? So pwede through using Google Forms. And then clear rationale for their inclusion. So you must clearly justify nganong kini man sila ang imuhang interviewon. Okay? So dapat clear siya. Okay? So, naay mga reasons or justifications why these people are involved in your research. Next is the data gathering methods and research instruments. So 20 points. If you want to get 20 points, then the proposal explains why the data gathering methods are suited. So example, you have to justify or to explain why you are going to use survey method. Anong survey man? Dili pa the interview. Okay, so dapat ma-justify nimo siya na this is the most appropriate data gathering method. So interview, nganong interview man? Kung sa interview, anong in-depth man, anong focus group discussion. So you must justify these methods. Okay, so these data gathering methods are suited to the nature and purpose of the study. The data gathering methods are aligned with the research questions. So make it sure that the methods that you are going to use can really collect the data wanted that you want to determine or explore as stated in your research questions. So details about research instruments are presented such as their sources or how they will be developed and by whom and their appropriateness for obtaining the desired kind of data information. So for example, kung survey, o sa researcher made survey ba siya or adapted na survey gikan sa ani na author, you must also cite the author. So if you are having the survey questionnaire. So you must also state there that you will have the validity test for that, the reliability and validity test of your questionnaire. For interview guide questions, so how are you going to develop your interview questions? Okay, so next is the data analysis plan. So this is good for 10 points. So for you to be able to get the 10 points, the selected methods of data analysis are shown to be appropriate to the nature of the data information to be gathered and for addressing the research questions. So make it sure na appropriate ang inyong data analysis. So for instance, sa qualitative research. You stated there that you are going to use the mean. So, nganong mean man? Kailangan ba appropriate ba ang mean to your research? So, ang mean or average can answer your research questions. So those are the things that you have to consider. So another data analysis is Pearson R. Pearson R, appropriate ba na siya? Ana na research topic. Kinalang po na limitation na Pearson R. You have the ANOVA or analysis of variance. T-test, when to use t-test? So appropriate ba siya for that research questions? For the qualitative, you have thematic analysis. So how are you going to employ thematic analysis? Is it appropriate for that? Is it appropriate for your research? Okay, so these are the research methods. So these are 40 points. Next main criteria is work plan and timelines. So this is good for 10 points. So a detailed work plan is provided covering start to completion of the research. So timelines are realistic and show concretely how the, the research will unfold over the allowed period. So the overall plan reflects the proponent's capacity to concretize ideas into a clear and sequential steps to be undertaken. So, diri ang mga schedule. So, diri mabutang ang Gantt chart. So, example, for if you started your research in January, so unsa man ang mga dapat buhaton sa January, the next month, February, March, so on and so forth. So you must plan well your work plan. Okay? The steps that you need to accomplish. Next main criteria is cost estimate. So this is equivalent to 10 points. So a detailed breakdown of items with their corresponding costs is furnished. So the items and cost reasonably reflect the funding needs of the research and adhere to birth guidelines. So the overall plan reflects the proponent's capacity to project specific expenses that she or he will be accountable for. So, sa cost estimates, diri ang budgeting. So, diri ni mo ipakita sila ha na these are the materials that I am going to use or will be needing in my research, especially in the conduct of my research. So, you must state all the details. So, gikan sa pad paper, sa pencil, sa voice recording, or sa load, sa meals, sa imuha mga participants, or mga incentives na imong ihatag sa mga respondents, sa imuha mga data analyst na imong itap in the future, sa imong statistician na imuhang itap pod in the future. So those are the things that must be included in your cost estimate. So you must also include your transportation allowance, communication allowance, so everything that is involved in conducting your research. So again, to summarize the action research proposal criteria, so you have the rationale, 10 points, research questions, 20 points, use of related literature and proper citation, 10 points, research methods, 40 points, work plan and timelines, 10 points, and you have the cost estimates, 10 points, a total of 100 points. So, your action research proposal will be evaluated in the region using these criteria. O, di ba? So, dali ra jud kayo siya. So, kaya nato ni buhaton. Okay, the passing rate for proposals is 70%. Out of the 100 points, you must earn 70% for you to be able to qualify for BERF or the Basic Education Research Fund. So, dali ra kaayo jud, 70%. So, after the after submitting your research proposal, so the region will evaluate all the proposals that were submitted from the division, from the different divisions in the region. So, 3 evaluators na siya. So, the 3 evaluators will evaluate your research proposals and then kwaon ang ilang average scores and then i-rank mo. So, for my case, for this year, so these are the list of qualified birth proponents. So, ako is rank 14. Then, my score is 87. 87. I don't know kung 87% siya or 87 points. So, same man lang yapon kay 100 points man iyang baseline. Okay. So, for next is the Basic Education Research Fund. So, if you qualify for the BERF or Basic Education Research Fund, you are going to get 30,000 pesos. So, 30,000 dili po na nimo siya makuha na buo. Kaya naman siya yung ginatawag na first tranche o second tranche. So, this is the investment na ako ang gimension at the start of the presentation. So, di ba, mo invest lang kag time, effort, commitment, and then at the end, you will get this 30,000 to conduct your research. So, in the sa 30,000, 75% of that will be used in your research proposals. So the conduct of your research, so the interview process if you are in the qualitative research, or the survey research kung naka sa quantitative, or the conduct of your pre or post test kung sa experimental research ka. Then 25% is research related activities. So this will be used during the advocacy program or the information dissemination of the result of your study. So for regions reaching 80% utilization, additional funds will be released. So, pag ato ang region, the region 11 will get 80%, then additional funding will be given from the national office or from the central office. So, another funding na po na siya. Okay. So, the last topic will be the steps or the process sa imuhang action research proposal. Okay? So, the first step is the call for proposals. So, the region um, will have the memo calling for research proposals from the different divisions. So, sa division pa lang, mag-call for proposals po na sila, and then ilahan ng i-initial evaluate, and then kato ila ma-initial evaluate, mo to ilahang i-submit for region. Then, pag na-submit na sa region, the region will also conduct initial evaluation. So, i-evaluate nila kung whether these proposals have no violations sa mga intellectual property, kung properly cited ba, and the likes. So, if na-screen na siya, na-screen na yung mga proposal, then mag-proceed na siya sa committee evaluation, which is composed of 3 evaluators. So, ang 3 evaluators will give scores. Kuan ni siya, blind evaluation. So, sa proposal, wala nakabutang ang imuhang pangalan. So, only your title. So, para to be fair sa tanan na mga nag-submit of proposals in the region. Then, after committee evaluation, the 3 evaluators will get their the average scores. So, and then i-rank na dahil na siya. Then after ranking, so you have the results notification. So the region will release memorandum. So just like I showed earlier, so mo to siya ang memorandum. So girank nila ang top 50 lang ang ilahang gihatagan og research funding. So, di ba, as mentioned earlier, na dapat 70% to get that fund. But, sa kadaghan-daghan na mag-submit, so, ang gibuhat sa region is ang top 50. So, ang ika-50 dito, ang iyang score is 76. So, di ba, taas pa kayo sa passing rate na ilahang gi-require unta. Then you have here the implementation of your research. Then after implementation, you have the submission and acceptance of the results of your research. So the complete research paper. Then utilization and dissemination of the results of your research, and then you have the archival. So these are the steps. So gikan from call for proposals up to the archival. So who are eligible to become birth grantees? So kinsa man ang pwede. So these are the eligibility of proponents. So first, regular or permanent teaching and non-teaching personnel of DepEd. So dili pwede ang mga provisionary pa lang. So it is stated na regular or permanent dapat. Next is no pending administrative case. So, dapat wala kay sala. Okay? And then next is has not yet availed the grant for the year. So, since yearly ang birth, so dapat dili ka current na birth grantee para dili magdoble. Pero you can still join next na pod. Okay. Maximum of 3 team members. So, kung dili ka confident na ikaw ra isa magbuhat, then pwede na kay partner, duha mo to have that research proposal or pwede pod maximum tulo mo. Okay? So, and then magtunga pod mo sa katong funding. Now, are you willing to invest your time, effort, and commitment? If yes, then you are guaranteed with that research funding. So, mora ni ang investment na um, walay involved na kwarta, pero hatagan kag kwarta, di ba? So, if yes, then you are guaranteed with that research funding. So, remember, life rewards efforts and not excuses. So let me end this topic with this statement. So action research is action learning. So that would be all. And thank you so much for your time and for listening. So if you have questions, pwede lang to raise. And if maulaw mo, you can approach me. Naalang ko diri sa ako ang room perminti to cater your questions. If you have research ideas na gusto ninyo i-implement and gusto ninyo um, himuong research proposal. So, willing kaayo ni Sir Herdin na mo assist sa inyo sa inyong mga research endeavors. So, again, thank you so much for your time and for listening. Have a blessed morning to each and every one of us. God bless.